Hey everybody, welcome to What's Up Wednesday. I always encourage people to send ideas for either Toolbox Talks or What's Up Wednesdays. And in the case this week, one of our field consultants, Earl Ellen Boss, who's working on our project in rural Indiana, sent in a suggestion. His suggestion was this: a railroad crossing safety toolbox talk. Here in Reynolds, Indiana, we have a number of active rail lines crisscrossing through the project boundary and site laydown perimeters. Many of these crossings are older and lack the physical boundary of a lowering arm or gate, employing the flashing lights and audible bell alarms. And Earl suggested that we develop a toolbox talk a little bit around railroad crossings in rural environments. So thank you, Earl. Fantastic topic. And when I think about it, I feel like I've crisscrossed much of the United States in my travels, and I've seen I'd say almost every sort of railroad crossing. And Earl is correct. And when you think about it, you get behind a semi tractor trailer or a school bus, there's always a sign on the back that says this vehicle stops at all railroad crossings, and there's a reason for that. So keep in mind that, even in urban environments, that technical systems can fail. Generally, I'm looking across the street at the railroad tracks right in front of the ferry dock right now, and there are giant flashing lights, and there are swing arms that drop down when a train's coming to prevent people from driving through them. And ironically, maybe not so much. People drive through those anyway sometimes and get hit by a train. But ultimately, rural encounters with trains are very, very common. And I think Earl said that statistically, one person dies about every 2 hours in the United States by getting hit or struck by a train. And I can't verify that statistic, but I know it's a very common occurrence. And when we think a little bit about training our teams and our people in awareness around railroad crossings, especially when they're crisscrossing adjacent to or through our projects, it's really important to create a standard. So again, keep in mind that if there isn't a swing arm and is a flashing light set up that will alert somebody, a driver, to to a train that's coming, then that's great. But at the same time, it's always a really good idea to slow down or come to a stop and make sure there's not a train coming, because sometimes electronic equipment fails. Oftentimes, not just sometimes, it's a very regular occurrence. Secondly, in a lot of these rural environments, some of those crossings don't have any controls in place. It is a blind crossing, and you don't know when a train's going to be coming through. And when we think about some of the practices that drivers tend to employ, if we observe drivers, and I know that this is a hot button topic for me because I feel like many people on the road are distracted at all times, and that distraction leads to traffic and accidents and a lot of other issues. But think about somebody driving in their vehicle with their radio turned up, and they're not paying attention to the railroad crossing because there are no flashing lights or swing gate, and there's a train coming, but they can't hear it because they have their radio up, and maybe they're not paying attention. I think it's really critical that we put protocols in place. And an easy protocol is, look, buy one of those stickers on Amazon. This vehicle stops at railroad crossings. Put them on the vehicles that you have out on the sites when you have rural crossings, and require your people to stop at every railroad crossing. It's a really good practice. Will people follow it? That's a whole nother topic. But either way, think a little bit about that risk, right? It's a risk that tends to get desensitized because so many times when we come to one of those crossings out in the middle of nowhere in the country, there's no train. But then there's that one day where there is a train. And, we've seen many situations where vehicles have been struck by a train. And I would say one other little tip around railroad crossings and trains would be when a vehicle stalls on a railroad crossing. And that has happened, ironically, many, many times. We've seen it in the news, we've seen videos of it. But the best thing that somebody can do is, if their vehicle stalls on the tracks and they can't get the vehicle started and there's a train coming, they want to run towards the train and keep going, because that vehicle is going to be blown away from the train. And if the train begins to derail for some reason, you want to get towards the rear of that train to avoid getting caught in the line of contact of the train, whether it derails or the contact of the vehicle being struck and being pushed forward. So a couple things to think about. Maybe a great topic for a Monday tailgate meeting. Um, Again, a great topic for a toolbox talk, but something we don't think a lot about, something environmentally that may or may not affect our teams in the field. So hopefully you find that helpful. Thanks, Earl. Really appreciate the topic. We'll see everybody next Wednesday.